Jacob Seelman Race Face Digital. Is the pressure off with a win in the pocket?
Yeah, it is. I think I was getting asked earlier in the week if there's more pressure now to go win more, and I don't think that's the case. I think that momentum's infectious. I think once you open the valve, they start flowing pretty easily. It's funny how that typically works. I've been a receiver of that end as well in the past, right? So, yeah, you just start racing a little bit differently. You put yourself in, I guess, what could look on the outside like riskier situations, but at the end result, those are the moves that result in wins. I think if you come to these races and you think, I've got to win, right? So you start doing all these little things of like, well, let's not race this guy too hard, or let's not push the limit on pit road a little too hard. Like, you're trying to minimize all these mistakes, but all you're doing is just hurting yourself and putting yourself behind the 8 ball. So, yeah, now, what's there to lose? We can go try to get a bunch of points. I think that's our agenda now, is start racking some stages up here and try to get a lot of points and continue to try to get further along in the point standings that we could in the first round here. And it's still really early, which is nice, so there's a lot of time to continue to make ground up and maybe even become a contender for this regular season, right? So I think that this group's gelling super well right now. Sam McCauley's a really, really good crew chief, and we're starting to really click with each other and starting to make the right adjustments during the race and even unloading with better speed than we started the year as well. So it's just all starting to come together, and we're doing it as a group, which is why I think it's working, right? I don't think there's one person overpowering the other. We all sit down together all week long and do this together, and we prepare together. So that's kind of my mentality. I take this as kind of like you would run a military unit, right? You get everybody in a room, you all brief before you go out there, and then you do it as a group. So that's kind of the way that I've been trying to run my race team, and I think we're doing a really good job of it.
Cameron Richardson, NASCAR.com. Brandon, I want to go back to Darlington, having not won in so long. Just what was that feeling like on the last lap, having a lead and just, kind of thinking about, all that you've been through over the last 2-3 years? What was that final lap for you, knowing that you had the lead?
Yeah, what I do after all these races, I like sit down and I'll, if I have a bad week, I'll be like, what was causing the bad week? If I didn't have the result that I expected to go into it, what was the things mentally going on in my head? What were the circumstances, the situations? And every time I win a race, it's I sit down and look at it. I'm like, well, nothing really ever intimidated me the entire race. Like, you had some of the best cup racers in the field, and I'd get around Christopher Bell and Chase and all those guys, and I didn't really care who it was. I just thought they were another competitor and raced them really aggressively and really hard at the same time, right? So I don't know. I felt like everything was just turned on, for Darlington. Everything flowed properly. Everything worked really well. There was never a bad pit stop. We never had really a bad restart. If we did, I was resourceful. I came up with solutions on how to make it better. So, yeah, the whole day seemed elevated. I think we all came into it with a really strong mindset. And we had a lot of momentum prior to Darlington, too. I know the finishes from Martinsville and a couple of those places didn't really show it, but we had started to tap into a lot of speed and really having speed throughout the entire race, not just at the very end. So I had felt that momentum had shifted a little bit, and it was kind of like, all right, well, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I feel like we're getting a lot closer.